Trump may be right, Putin's ambitions could extend beyond Ukraine. Zelenskyy quips, "Do you know Trump?" while hinting at what Europe needs to do for Ukraine. And Ukraine calls to bar Russia from UN peacekeeping roles. Reason revealed. The latest news next. Analysts at the Institute for the Study of War confirmed that Russia is preparing for a new conflict, potentially even a confrontation with NATO, according to a recent ISW report. About Putin's ambitions, US President Donald Trump suggests that the territorial ambitions of Russian dictator Vladimir Putin go beyond the occupation of Ukrainian territories, echoing concerns voiced by the US military leadership. Trump noted that, in his view, the Russian leader wants a way out of the current situation because it's chaos for him. The president also remarked that Putin was wrong about his invasion of Ukraine. ISW assessment. The Institute for the Study of War confirms that Russia is preparing for a potential future conflict with NATO and is laying the groundwork to justify aggression against former Soviet states that are not NATO members.
ICERTN has long assessed that Russia is preparing its military and society for a possible future conflict with NATO following the conclusion of the war in Ukraine, including by pursuing military reforms, integrating veterans into all levels of Russian local, regional, and federal governments, and setting rhetorical conditions to justify future aggression against NATO.
ISW also notes that the Kremlin is now using the same kind of rhetoric it employed against Ukraine before the full-scale invasion in February 2022, this time to threaten NATO member states. Threat of Russian-NATO war. In mid-2024, Estonian intelligence reported that Russia is actively preparing for a new military conflict, which could potentially include a confrontation with NATO. German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius also acknowledged the possibility of war between Russia and NATO, urging allies to be prepared for emerging threats. Previously, the defense ministers of Latvia, Poland, and Romania called on NATO allies to urgently strengthen air defense measures on the alliance's eastern flank. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has also warned that the next victims of Vladimir Putin's regime could be the Baltic states or Poland. The alarm bells are no longer subtle, they are deafening. What we are witnessing is not the end of one war, but the quiet shaping of the next. Russia's moves are methodical, strategic, and chillingly familiar. The same propaganda playbook, the same military build-up, the same dangerous narrative engineering, this time aimed not just at Ukraine, but at NATO itself. This is not about guessing intentions anymore. This is about recognizing patterns, listening to voices that have been right before, and understanding that complacency is a luxury we can no longer afford. When former front lines become staging grounds, and when old rhetoric becomes the blueprint for new aggression, the world must finally accept that deterrence without action is just permission. If the free world continues to hesitate, to second-guess, to underestimate, then the next frontline may no longer be symbolic. It may be inside NATO borders. And by then, history won't ask why it happened. It will ask why no one acted while there was still time. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy outlined what Europe must do to help Ukraine achieve victory. The head of state also mentioned US President Donald Trump, according to Zelensky's statement during a PACE session. Zelenskyy emphasized that the key to Ukrainians' victory lies not only in military or financial support, but in the strategic unity of the entire democratic world, particularly between Europe and the US.
Do you know President Trump? We need a strong connection with him. We need Europe. I think we need unity between Europe and the US, and we will prevail.
Volodymyr Zelenskyy has repeatedly emphasized the importance of transatlantic unity in the fight against Russian aggression. The Ukrainian president paid particular attention to the need for tougher sanctions against Russia, stressing that the West must act decisively.
To decrease Russia's appetite, it's been to put sanctions, as strong as possible, banking, energy, and of course on components for their defense sector. It is very important, and it always comes with it. It's a pity that it goes to European, Asia, China, even Taiwan, and other countries where businesses, really I mean sell components. And then Russia uses a big number of missiles attacking us.
According to him, without these technological parts, Russia would not be able to produce the volume of weapons it currently launches daily at Ukrainian cities. He called on the international community not only to avoid helping the enemy, but to actively block its war machine. Back in 2024, the ISW reported that Russian dictator Vladimir Putin continues to count on the West abandoning Ukraine, which would help the Kremlin achieve its military goals. Meanwhile, another NATO summit took place in The Hague with the participation of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy and US President Donald Trump. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte emphasized that the alliance will provide support that is strong and long-term so that in peacetime Ukraine can rely on clear guarantees. Victory doesn't come from weapons alone, it comes from will, from unity, from the refusal to blink in the face of evil. Zelensky's message cuts deeper than diplomacy. It is a plea for coherence in the free words, for transatlantic backbone, for decisions that match the gravity of this moment. If Europe and the US stand divided, Russia wins, not just on the battlefield, but in the global balance of power. But if they stand as one, determined and unyielding, then Ukrainians' victory will be more than a military triumph. It will be a moral one. The question is no longer what Ukraine needs. The question is whether the West has the courage to deliver it. Russia must be removed from UN peacekeeping missions due to crimes against children in the war in Ukraine, stated Ukraine's permanent representative of Ukraine to the UN, Andriy Melnik. The diplomat referred to a report on violations of children's rights in Ukraine since the full-scale war began. He noted that the number of such crimes has increased by 105%. During the session, Melnik called for the temporary suspension of Russia's participation in peacekeeping missions until Russian forces are fully removed from these operations. He also proposed implementing automatic sanctions against countries that violate children's rights. About deportation of Ukrainian children, since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, the Russian forces have been mass deporting Ukrainian children to Belarus, Russia, and occupied Crimea. According to Ombudsman Dmytro Lubinets, more than 90,500 children have been deported since the war began. Over 1,000 young Ukrainians have been returned home. Earlier, as part of the Ukrainian president's initiative Bring Kids Back UA, a 17-year-old boy was successfully returned. The deportation of Ukrainian children was a key reason behind the International Criminal Court in The Hague issuing arrest warrants for Russian dictator Vladimir Putin and Russia's Commissioner for Children's Rights Maria Lvova-Belova. A country that steals children cannot speak of peace. Russia's presence in UN peacekeeping missions is not just a contradiction, it is a moral failure of the international system. When the very state accused of abducting thousands of children wears the badge of a peacekeeper, the message to victims is clear: justice is optional and impunity is tolerated. This is not diplomacy, it's decay. The credibility of the UN demands courage, not convenience. Removing Russia from peacekeeping roles isn't just the right decision, it's the only one that says children's lives matter more than politics. All war criminals must be brought to justice, including the Russian dictator Vladimir Putin, states Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy at PACE.
Today's agreement to create the tribunal is just the beginning, and now we must take real steps to make it work. And it will take strong political and legal cooperation to make sure every Russian war criminal faces justice, including Putin.
According to Zelenskyy, this is the path that must be followed from the very beginning to real charges and real verdicts. In this regard, the Ukrainian president called on the members of PACE to stay engaged and continue to be leaders as they have been so far.
Some people understandably ask what a tribunal can really do. Wouldn't it be better to focus entirely on weapons, technology, and drones? Of course, military support for Ukraine, tough sanctions against Russia, and political pressure on the aggressor are all essential. And these are the things that make Russia feel the true cost of this war. And yes, the aggressor must lose, and we are working on that. Ukrainians' lives must be protected. And I thank everyone who supports our defense.
Zelenskyy emphasized that justice also matters greatly. It must work in a way that leaves no place for war criminals to hide, neither in Europe nor anywhere else.
Justice must work in a way that makes it clear to anyone planning such crimes of aggression that accountability is certain. And justice must work in a way that sets the legal principle, no rewards for aggression. That is why the crime of aggression must be recorded, judged, and punished. The Hague is perfect venue for it. The Hague is waiting for justice to be delivered.
He added that every war criminal must face trial, including the Russian dictator Vladimir Putin. Addressing representatives of the parliaments of the Council of Europe member states, Zelenskyy said that real steps now need to be taken to make everything work. And this is the path we must walk all the way to real charges and real verdicts. And I urge you to stay involved and keep leading just as you have done so far, he emphasized. That's all for today. Thanks for watching this video. Support Ukraine, like and subscribe.